What if I told you the government could owe you over £4,200, and you'd never even know? If you were born before 1959, your state pension could be wrong, and the DWP isn't telling everyone. Thousands have already missed out, and time is running out to claim your money. Don't scroll. This is the most important warning you'll hear all year. Imagine checking your bank account after a lifetime of paying into the system, only to realize that the government may have shortchanged you by thousands of pounds, and you never even knew it. For those born before 1959, this isn't a what-if situation, or just another administrative blunder. This is a real unfolding crisis, and the amount at stake could be as much as £4,200 per person. The Department for Work and Pensions has now confirmed that serious errors in the UK's state pension system have been quietly draining entitlements from tens of thousands of elderly citizens, many of whom are now struggling financially. This isn't just about numbers. This is about fairness, justice, and the broken promise of a retirement many people counted on. What we're talking about today could affect your future, or the future of someone you love. So stay with us, and let's break down exactly what's going on, and what you need to do now before it's too late. The warning signs began surfacing a few years ago when pension campaigners noticed a pattern in underpayments, especially for older pensioners, most of whom were women. But what started as isolated cases has now blown wide open. Investigations by the National Audit Office and the Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee have revealed a systemic failure in the DWP's records that's left over 230,000 pensioners receiving less than they are owed. And most shocking of all, the bulk of these people were born before 1959. People who are already in or near retirement, many of them in their 70s and 80s, and in some cases, even older. We're talking about pensioners who followed all the rules, worked all their lives, or supported families as homemakers who are now discovering they were entitled to more money all along. So how did this happen? The state pension system before 2016 was extremely complex. Under the old rules, many married women relied on their husbands' national insurance contributions to boost their own pension. Widows were supposed to get an uplift in their pension following their husband's death, and people over 80, regardless of their work record, were entitled to a minimum pension known as the Category D pension. But in countless cases, these rules were never properly applied. Records were not updated, claims were not reviewed, and in some heartbreaking situations, women who should have been notified automatically were completely left in the dark. One of the core problems is that many pension awards were made manually, using paper forms and local systems that didn't always sync with the central DWP database. Errors made years ago were never corrected, and no one noticed. Until now. If you were born before 1959, especially if you are a woman, if you were widowed, divorced, or even just stayed home to raise children, your pension may have been affected. One of the most common errors involved women who were entitled to have their pension increased to 60% of their husband's basic state pension once he retired. But unless they proactively made a claim, or the DWP remembered to adjust it, the increase never happened. There are stories of women who were underpaid by hundreds of pounds a year, sometimes for more than a decade. The average amount owed per person is around £4,200, but some people are owed £10,000 or more. And here's the kicker. The government will not automatically review everyone's record. That means if you don't ask for your pension to be looked at, you could miss out entirely. Now, if you're watching this thinking, I'm not sure if this applies to me, then it probably does. Because one of the biggest issues is that affected people don't even realize they've been underpaid. The system is so complicated and hard to understand, especially if you're older and not comfortable with online services. And for many pensioners, there's a natural instinct to trust that the government knows what it's doing. But in this case, that trust has been deeply misplaced. The DWP has admitted the error, but its response has been slow, inconsistent, and lacking in transparency. They say they are working through affected groups, but with a timeline stretching into late 2026, Many people simply cannot afford to wait 2 more years to get the money they're owed. There's also a massive concern about people who've already passed away. If someone died without knowing they were underpaid, it's up to their families or executors to request a review. But most people don't even know that's possible. And worse still, once an estate is closed, getting a back payment becomes even more difficult. It's a race against time, not just for those still alive, but for the families left behind. What's clear is that silence could cost you. If you don't raise your hand and say, "Check my record," you could be missing out on money that's rightfully yours. We're not talking about a small error here and there. £4,200 is a huge sum for someone on a fixed income. That's a new boiler, several months of groceries, or even the ability to heat your home during winter. And in today's economic climate, with food prices rising and energy bills still sky high, every single pound makes a difference. Let me tell you about Joan, a retired cleaner from Manchester. She was 84 when she found out she'd been underpaid. Her husband passed away in 2005, and she assumed her pension was correct. It was only after her daughter read about the underpayment scandal online that they contacted the pension service. Turns out, Joan had been underpaid since 2005, nearly 20 years. After a few months of back and forth, she received a lump sum of £12,700. That money completely changed her quality of life. She bought a stair lift, hired a part-time carer, and finally felt some security after years of penny pinching. And there are thousands more Joans out there, maybe you, maybe someone you love, who don't know what they're missing. So what should you do now? First, request a state pension forecast or statement. You can do this online through the government's website or by calling the pension service. Then, if you were married, widowed, or divorced, ask if your pension has ever been reviewed as part of the DWP's correction exercise. If you're over 80, ask whether you're receiving the full Category D pension. You may need to provide additional documents like your marriage certificate or your spouse's national insurance number. But do not wait for the government to contact you. They've already said they're not writing to everyone. You must take the first step. This also applies to anyone helping an elderly parent or relative. If they were born before 1959, go through this with them. Make the call together, help them gather the paperwork, advocate for them, because they deserve better than this. We also encourage everyone watching to share this video. The more people who know about this, the more pressure there is on the DWP to fix it faster. Too many pensioners are suffering in silence, not knowing they're owed thousands. You can be the reason someone gets justice. Let's not forget, this isn't just about pensioners being underpaid. This is about a system that failed to uphold its end of the bargain. People paid in for decades with the understanding that they'd be supported in retirement. Now, as errors surface, the very least the government can do is make things right, and do it quickly. But time is not on our side. Every month that goes by is another month someone could be living without money they desperately need. And with delays stretching into 2026, the fear is that many more will die before they ever see their back payments. The pressure is building. Members of Parliament have begun demanding answers. Pension campaigners are calling for compensation and interest on delayed payments, and the public is watching more closely than ever. But for real change to happen, people need to speak up. That means you. Whether you're affected directly or not, your voice matters. Because this is about protecting the dignity and financial security of our elderly population. It's about restoring faith in a system that was supposed to look after you when you're no longer working. And it's about standing up to the idea that these errors are acceptable or something pensioners should just tolerate. If you've watched this far, don't leave without taking action. Request a review. Talk to your parents. Share this with friends. Contact your MP if you're still waiting months for answers from the DWP. And make your voice heard. The system won't change if we remain silent. But with enough pressure and enough people coming forward, we can make sure that no one else loses out on what they're owed. And before you go, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. We bring you urgent, verified updates on DWP changes, pension news, and financial support for UK seniors.